we need to be aware of what's going on with interest rates or taxes or all those sorts of things. But what we do about it is can be and should be really completely separate, right? Like we know what the steps to success are in financial planning, and you need to take those steps just like in tennis.
John, let's talk about how personal finance and money are similar to my favorite sport right now, which is tennis. And I'm going to give us three topics of how money is like tennis. All right, here we go. First, how you handle it when you're young and when you're old. So you've got positives in both sides. Okay. So when you're young with tennis, you can play almost every day. You can play 5 times a week. So, in that repetition and that muscle repetition can get you've got more energy and you can play a lot, which gets you a big advantage. Okay. When you're older, you're not going to be probably able to play every day a week. I can really only play 3 times a week without getting injured. So that means that I got to be smarter if I'm trying to improve. But luckily, I've got some resources, some cash resources, and I know, oh, the way to do it then is to hire a coach and try to get 1 day a week or 1 day a month, maybe playing with my, hitting with my coach to try to get better faster. And I think that's a lot like money because when you're younger, you can work a lot and you can make a lot. But when you're older, hopefully you've got some more resources. You can be smart about it and you take advantage of that. There's things to take advantage of both in both scenarios. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. Well, my first thought was when you talked about playing 5 days a week at my age, I'm like, oh, that sounds painful. So I'm glad to
Yeah,
hear that it's not just me is thinking about that, right? Where you have to be, what was it, work smarter, not harder sort of a
yeah,
thing. And I really enjoy this analogy because I was thinking about, when you're young athletically playing tennis, you can just sort of get better by brute force,
right,
right? You can just kind of just, work and work and work and get there. And you improve to a certain level, like for us amateurs, right? You get pretty good if you practice 6 days a week,
right.
right? And that reminds me of it. And you mentioned you can make more money and do things, but my mind went to, the sort of building blocks of financial success are, save money and save on a consistent basis. And you don't have to be real fancy if you just save and save and save, right? Whether it's 401k is a great place, right? Even just sticking money in the bank, but it's just sort of brute force. Like, listen, if you save enough money, you're going to be financially successful. It doesn't have to be super fancy. Kind of that related for me for the tennis thing. Like, can you do some better things? Yep, but you know what? Nothing's a substitute for being on the court 6 days a week. Like, just like nothing's a substitute for packing money into your 401k plan, let's say. Right. And then you get to the other side, and I just love that. And it like, all right, you know what? I can't just brute force this thing in my tennis game, but
Right,
I'm in a position where I can be a little bit smarter. I can learn. I
right.
can use more of the intellectual than the physical side, perhaps. And that's where I related that to the financial planning. Like, all right, now you get to a certain spot, and you know what? Little tweaks make a much bigger difference, right? If you can improve whether it's taxes or investment returns or other things by 1%, and now at this stage you've got $1 million, that's big money. When you had $50,000, you can make that same incremental tweak and it just doesn't move the needle as far, right? And so that sort of yin and yang of things, like there's different seasons for your tennis game and different seasons for what can make you successful from a financial standpoint. I just love that.
All right, I got another way too that tennis is like money, and that is that you probably act differently and have different strategies when you're ahead. So, like, let's say you're behind and you feel like you don't have enough money or you haven't saved enough for retirement. All right, then you might decide to be a little more aggressive because you feel like you're behind. Okay, I need to try to take advantage. I want to put more energy into this and I want to try to get some points fast. Okay, so you might do a side hustle, right? That just for a month, but you're figuring it out again because you feel like you're behind. You're going to have a little more aggressive strategy. If you're
Mhm.
ahead, you're like, wait a minute, I can just be very strategic and try to take safer shots, but take the aggressive shots when it's really well set up for me. But just be patient. I can like rely on patience a lot more. And then I can be more successful and let that other person make mistakes. Okay. And you don't have to wait for other people to make mistakes when you're with your own finances because it's really more just about you. You don't have that opponent, but you still have this idea of I'm behind or I'm ahead.
No, I think that really resonates, as I think about some of the client work that we do and thinking about when we got people that we call it, when you've won the
Right.
game, right? When you're
Yep.
ahead,
Right.
it's really becomes defensive, right? Like,
Right.
you can choose to go on offense from a financial planning standpoint, but the idea is, all right, how do we not lose now, right? Like,
Right.
which and playing not to lose in sports isn't a great thing, but in money in your financial life, it can be a great thing, right? How do you
Right.
just, keep what you've got? And then we got on the other side when maybe you've gotten behind on things where you have to force the hand a little bit, right?
Right.
Just like you have to, hey, I'm behind. I've got to take some chances on the court and try to hit some corners as opposed to just hitting the ball in the middle of the court, sort of a feeling,
Right.
right? And it really, I start thinking about some of the wonky statistical things that we do for folks, but it really comes out that when somebody's won the game, you go like, more aggressive, less aggressive doesn't change the result a whole lot, right? You've kind
Right.
of won, and it's a matter of being, smart and looking at maybe your other goals. If you're behind in tennis and you play it safe, you're on a losing track, so you
Right.
have to take some chances. There are some folks you get in a spot where we have to take some chances in order to get to those goals that we have. I mean, so it just really correlates directly.
Yeah, when you're behind, it's like you got to try to figure out something. I mean, sometimes it's just you and you need to focus more, but other times it's like I got to try something else. Last way, money and tennis are the same is that it's so much about mental game. So
Hmm.
tennis is cool because it was really one of the first sports to focus on mental game. There's a well-known book called The Inner Game of Tennis that people use from everything from conducting symphonies to still people use tennis, and that was ages ago written. And there's also Winning Ugly. I'm just taking a look at that, that which is an interesting concept. Like you don't have to be glamorous to win. You just have to do the things that help you win. It doesn't. You don't have to. Yeah, you can win ugly.
Right.
So in tennis, it's well known that you need some help with your mental game and staying positive and present are the keys. And so, the big stars, almost inevitably, they've got at least one mental coach in their entourage. And when you look at a doubles match, you're constantly seeing the people like they lose a point, they're patting each other on the butt, they're whispering to each other. Like they're trying to keep the other person positive because letting your mental attitude going down the tubes doesn't help anything. So the mental game is really important in tennis, but it's also important to stay present and positive with money. You can think, oh, what was me? I can't, what the future is so glum, I can't believe it. But if you actually look around, you're like, oh, this isn't that bad. I just had a meal and I got a roof over my head. This is good. I'm okay.
Hmm.
You can focus on the argument or the end of the world is coming. The word escapes me. And just forget, like, oh, actually, I'm okay right now. The
Yeah.
present's good. And here's three positive things that happened today with money. I I balanced my checkbook and I paid my credit card and somebody paid me. Awesome.
Hmm.
Great things that happened today. So similar to tennis, like stay positive, stay focused. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like one of the sports analogies or phrases that I've really liked over the years is control the controllables, right? And
Right.
so when you're on the tennis court and you can't, if there is a bad call or, fans interfering or the wind is blowing or whatever, I mean, all these things that go on, right? You're like, oh,
Hot.
no,
Yeah.
what can you control, right?
Right.
I can control what's in front of me. And that's the thing, as you talk about, hey, focus on the present, staying positive, right? What happened on the last point literally has no effect on your next point, right? It doesn't
Right.
make any, unless you got hurt, right? The fact
Right.
that you airmailed one or missed or whatever happened doesn't affect you. Doesn't necessarily affect you if you don't let it, right? They're
Right.
independent things, and that's, so much of our financial planning world is, well, we can't control what the Fed's going to do with interest rates or what the fill in the blank, thing, right? So is it information? Yep. I mean, if you lost 3 points in a row, you need to know that. You need to know where you stand in the point or in the match, right? But it also doesn't necessarily dictate what you do. So yeah, we need to be aware of what's going on with interest rates or taxes or all those sorts of things. But what we do about it is can be and should be really completely separate, right? Like we know what the steps to success are in financial planning, and you need to take those steps just like in tennis. You know what the steps are that you need to do to be effective, and you just need to execute and stay in the moment, right? To use that tennis type analogy is again just completely carries over both sides.
Great. So thanks a lot, John, for helping me talk through how my favorite sport is like my favorite job, financial planning. I'm Bridget Sullivan Morel, and I've got a field financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shear. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. Both Bridget and I are taking on new clients. We would love to hear from you. But if you like what you hear on our show and you'd like to find an advisor that's local to your area, both Bridget and I are members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners, and you can find an advisor in your area that thinks like us by going to acplanners.org.
And don't forget to subscribe.